And just like a soldier, I keep on moving forward, always getting closer, I'm marching till it's over. And just like a soldier, I keep on moving forward.
Hello and welcome back to MangaMuse, guys. This is the second part of What If Naruto Enters K-Pop Demon Hunters. Make sure to like, share, subscribe and also press the bell icon so that you never miss a great update. Also make sure to check out the wonderful author Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Well, let's continue with the story now.
It felt like time had stopped between them. The hum of the city outside, the faint sizzle from the ramen pots, even the soft clink of utensils, all of it disappeared, leaving only the two of them suspended in a fragile, suffocating bubble. The blonde man's eyes flicked to her patterns, crawling up her neck like living fire. The corner of his mouth tried to curl into a casual smile, but it faltered instantly. His whole demeanor shifted, a subtle tightening of his shoulders, a cold precision replacing the casual calm. There was something in the way he moved, something that radiated authority and danger, that made the air itself seem heavier around them. Rumi's heart slammed in her chest, each beat echoing loud enough to drown the distant neon buzz outside. She wanted to speak, to explain, to scream, but her voice had betrayed her, gone, stolen, silenced. All she could do was freeze, caught in the invisible tether of his gaze. He leaned in, close enough that his breath brushed the curve of her ear. She felt the heat, the sharp edge of danger pressing against her skin. His hand moved slowly, deliberately, shifting her out of the way as though clearing a path. To anyone else in the shop, it would have looked like nothing more than a man maneuvering through a crowded space. But the words he whispered froze her in place, sharp as a blade against her mind. "I don't know if Jiraiya sent you here," he said, his voice low, steady, dangerous, "but if you lay one finger on anyone here I'll kill you." The words didn't just threaten her, they landed in her chest like jagged shards. She could feel every muscle in her body tighten, every nerve screaming. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The patterns on her skin prickled as if responding to the threat, crawling in uncomfortable ripples across her neck and collarbone. He can feel it. He can see it. He knows. And yet, beneath the threat, beneath the cold precision in his eyes, there was a pause, something almost human, almost hesitant. As if he were measuring her, weighing the danger against a flicker of something else. Rumi's knees felt weak. The room seemed to shrink around her. The blue glow of the shop sign outside spilled through the windows, painting the walls and their faces in ghostly light. Every shadow seemed to bend toward him, every flicker of movement magnified in her heightened senses. Her mind spun. Part of her screamed to flee, to curl into herself and disappear, but another part, the part she didn't like to admit even existed, wanted to reach toward him. That part was drawn to the confidence, the danger, the raw, untamed power that radiated from Menma like heat from a furnace. And beneath that, deeper still, was the pull of the Han moon. The strand of sapphire energy that had led her here still lingered in her mind, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. It wasn't just guiding her, it was testing her. Calling her. Demanding something from her she couldn't yet understand. Fear warred with fascination. Self-preservation clashed with curiosity. Her chest tightened with the knowledge that one wrong move could get her killed or worse, unleash something inside herself she couldn't control. She wanted to speak, to beg, to explain herself, but her throat refused. The energy in her veins hummed, alive, reacting to the presence of Menma and the shard of the Han moon she'd carried with her. She felt it thrumming against her chest, tugging at her, whispering a promise she couldn't ignore. Every instinct screamed at her to move, but she was rooted, trapped by fear, curiosity, and the undeniable weight of his presence. Her brown eyes darted, trying to read him, to find some hint of who he really was, what he wanted. And yet, in the stillness, the unspoken tension, she realized something terrifying: she couldn't look away. She didn't want to. The world outside, the streets, the neon, the fractured Han moon faded until it was just the two of them. His violet eyes held hers like a tether, pulling her forward even as every rational thought shouted at her to run. And in that impossible, suspended moment, Rumi understood one thing with chilling clarity: this encounter wasn't just about danger. It was about choice. Would she fight it? Would she run? Or would she follow, letting the energy and this mysterious, terrifying man lead her into something she couldn't yet see? The answer wasn't clear. But her body, her pulse, the very patterns crawling over her skin, all whispered the same thing: she was already on the path. The tense moment shattered abruptly. A loud, slurred voice called out from the far end of the shop, "Oi, Menma! You got any money for some liquor?" Menma's expression flipped instantly, the sharp edge melting into a laid-back, almost playful smile. "Ian Tsubaki, don't make me call your mother on you," he yelled back, his voice carrying easily across the room. The entire shop erupted in laughter, a collective, knowing sound that seemed to expect this banter between the ramen owner and the big man. "Oi, Menma, there's no need to do that. Let's not be hasty now, it was just an innocent question," someone called, trying to smooth over the tension. "There's nothing innocent about you, and you know it. If I feed your indulgences, we both know I'm gonna have to carry you out of here." Menma's voice was playful but firm as he set fresh bowls in front of the eagerly waiting kids at the bar. He ruffled a small boy's hair. "Eat up, Tachi. Your mom's about to get off work in an hour." The little boy's eyes lit up at the free bowl, his short legs kicking as he sat on the stool, not quite tall enough to reach the floor. "Thanks, Mr. Menma," he said happily, slurping noodles with gusto. "Of course, bud. And when you're done, go in the back office and finish your homework." Menma chuckled as Tachi slumped in contentment. "If you need help again, I'm willing to help you, but only if you finish your food fast." The boy cheered quietly, more slurping following as he devoured his noodles. Menma's gaze flicked back to Rumi, noticing her still standing there, tears not yet dry. "Would you like a bowl of ramen?" "First one's always on the house," he offered, his tone softening but still careful, measured. Rumi could only nod, too overwhelmed to speak. Menma sighed, a small, genuine exhale that seemed to ease the tension slightly. "There's a bathroom upstairs," he said softly, handing her the keys. "It's private, but you can go in." Rumi clutched the keys, the cool metal pressing against her palm. She could feel her racing pulse slow ever so slightly in the warmth of the shop and the strange, grounding presence of Menma. It wasn't safety, she knew that, but it was something she could cling to for now. She went through the door and stepped upstairs, her legs still trembling from the stairway dash. The space was modest, practical, an office tucked into the back of the building. Not lavish, not pristine, but clean. Sturdy furniture lined the walls, each piece smelling faintly of polished wood, with a faint scent of old paper and faint incense lingering in the air. To her left, a small bathroom offered a sink, a mirror, and a little counter space. Compact and functional, it wasn't the kind of space you'd call private in the sense of being hidden, but it was more than enough for her needs. Rumi leaned over the sink, her trembling hands cupping cool water. She brought it to her face, letting droplets fall across her cheeks, neck, and arms. The stage makeup streaked away, running like paint in tiny rivulets, leaving her skin pale, damp, and raw beneath. She pressed a palm to her forehead, willing the panic to ease, willing the chaos inside her to slow. Mira's planned makeup that came off in seconds suddenly felt like a blessing. Bobby had protested at first, fretting over how it would smear with sweat under stage lights, but Mira's stubborn insistence had won. As she wiped the last streak from under her eyes, she allowed herself the tiniest smile. A small victory, even in the middle of disaster. And then guilt pricked sharp and relentless. The others, Zoey, Mira, Bobby, they must be frantic, panicked, tearing through the stage area looking for her. Her stomach twisted as she imagined their faces, straining with worry, their voices rising over the echoing emptiness of the arena. She swallowed hard. She had abandoned them, even if only for a moment, driven by a desperate, irrational pull she didn't yet understand. She pressed her palms against her damp cheeks, letting herself breathe. The water cooled her skin, but it couldn't soothe the fire in her chest. Her mind flicked back to the sapphire strand that had guided her here, still lingering in her thoughts, still thrumming faintly at the edges of her consciousness. This wasn't the Hanmun's core, it wasn't the moon itself, but the core of that red, vile energy that had tainted everything, spreading through the sky like living veins. It pulsed, twisted, and shimmered with a life all its own, and somehow, impossibly, it had led her to Menma. Could he contain it? Control it? She had no idea. His presence radiated confidence, raw power, almost as if he could bend even the most malignant energy to his will. But there were no patterns, no markings. Could a demon hide itself so completely? Some could, she knew, but something about him was different. And yet, even as the logical part of her mind asked questions, another part, the part she barely admitted existed, throbbed with a strange, magnetic pull toward him. They were alike, and yet wholly separate. He was not just danger, he was something else. A force she couldn't resist, a current she couldn't swim against. It made her pulse race and her chest tighten, and yet it fascinated her to the point of fear. She pressed her palms against her damp cheeks, letting herself breathe. The water cooled her skin, but it couldn't soothe the fire in her chest. With each droplet running down her wrists, each faint trickle leaving her collarbone damp, she felt her thoughts slow and gather. She wasn't entirely safe, she knew that. Every nerve in her body screamed the same warning: one wrong move, one wrong thought, and everything could explode in disaster. And yet, the water's touch, the ritual of cleansing, seemed to ground her. Wash away the tears, wash away the panic, at least for a moment. Rumi wiped her nose, then squared her shoulders. Her chest rose and fell with a slow, deliberate rhythm, her brown eyes catching her reflection in the mirror. The girl staring back was messy, trembling, but determined. She gave herself a nod, quiet but firm. One step at a time. One breath at a time. With a final deep inhale, she picked up the keys Menma had given her, slipping them into her pocket, and moved back toward the stairs. Each step down carried with it the echo of purpose, however fragile, however uncertain. She wasn't sure what she would find waiting below, what answers or dangers Menma or the red strand of energy held for her. But for the first time in what felt like hours, she felt a spark of resolve. Whatever awaited her downstairs, she would face it. One way or another. As she walked down, laughter floated up from the main room, warm and alive, breaking through the heaviness still clinging to her. Pushing the door open, she saw Menma twirling a small child, barely 3, into the air. The child's giggles spilled out like music, bright and unrestrained, echoing against the walls. Menma's face softened into a rare, unguarded smile, a fleeting warmth that carried shadows beneath it, like he had known sadness too intimately. Rumi felt it, subtle and piercing, and couldn't help but smile herself, feeling a little of the tension in her chest ease. Menma caught sight of her from the corner of his eye and gently set the giggling infant back into his mother's arms. "Keep this little gremlin in check, will ya, Sarah?" he said, voice soft but playful. Sarah, a woman with a heavy Korean accent, beamed at him. "Thanks so much, Menma," she said, adjusting the child's coat. "Anytime, Sarah." "Always willing to help," he replied, slipping back into the rhythm of his kitchen with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime carrying weight without letting it show. Rumi lingered, unsure whether to sit, stand, or leave, lost in the gentle chaos around her. She didn't notice Menma until a warm hand rested lightly on her shoulder. Startled, she spun around to meet his gaze. In his other hand, he carried a large, steaming bowl of ramen. "Careful," he said softly, setting it down on a small table away from the other customers. "It's hot." She blinked at him, unsure what to make of the gesture. Tentatively, she picked up the chopsticks and tasted it. The flavor richer than anything she'd expected. Her face flamed with heat, and she glanced around, praying no one had noticed. Everyone's eyes were on her, and for a heartbeat, panic fluttered in her chest. Then she met Menma's gaze. His smile this time wasn't guarded, it was real, gentle, and fleeting. Her pulse quickened at the quiet honesty in it. He looked away quickly, a faint blush rising across his cheek, as if he too were caught off guard. A customer's voice called out from the counter, loud and casual, "I'll have what she's having." Rumi groaned softly, hiding her face behind the chopsticks. Please don't let anyone tweet this, she thought. She knew she'd never live it down if the world saw this tiny, unguarded moment of hers. The shop hummed around them, the soft hiss of boiling water, the clatter of ladles, the low murmur of conversation. It felt oddly safe, NTMT, a small pocket of warmth in a city fractured by chaos and a Han moon that refused to rest. Rumi realized she could stay here a little longer, savoring the quiet, letting herself breathe, before stepping back into the storm outside. Rumi sat at the small wooden table, the steam from the ramen curling lazily toward her face. She pressed her hands to her lap, willing herself to swallow quietly, to keep any more from escaping. Her ears caught the low hum of the quieted shop, the faint clatter of dishes, the soft scrape of a broom against the tiled floor, and it grounded her somehow. Menma moved behind the counter with effortless precision, wiping down surfaces, stacking bowls, and sorting condiments. Every motion was measured, almost rhythmic, like a dance performed daily yet never rehearsed. Rumi's eyes flicked to the few patrons still lingering, hurriedly packing up their things, murmuring thanks to Menma as they left. Soon, the store emptied, leaving only the three of them, Rumi, Menma, and little Tachi, who had just finished his homework in the back booth and now dozed lightly, curled into himself, exhausted but content. The quiet pressed down around her, heavy and NTMT. Rumi felt both relief and tension coiling in her chest, relief that the room had cleared, tension because of Menma's presence, the way the faint glow from the blue sign outside cast gentle shadows across his face. Even in this mundane moment, there was something about him that seemed larger, heavier, impossible to ignore. Rumi rested her chopsticks on the bowl, feeling the warmth radiating through the ceramic, and allowed herself a slow, steadying breath. The scent of miso and broth, the soft murmur of Tachi's even breathing, the subtle scrape of Menma's movements, it all grounded her, yet kept her on edge. She didn't know whether it was safety or danger, comfort or warning, but she couldn't look away. 30 minutes later, Rumi had finished her ramen before it could even cool. The flavors lingered on her tongue, rich and comforting, and for a moment, she imagined Zoey here, devouring a bowl just like this, her face lighting up with delight. Could she ever tell her friends about this place, about Menma? She shook her head at the thought. Not without giving herself away. Not without revealing the patterns creeping along her skin. Celine had always drilled it into her: some things were better left hidden, some truths too dangerous to share. The laughter and chatter faded with the last few customers. Chairs scraped softly against the floor as they rose, thanking Menma on their way out. He waved them off with a faint smile, his usual calm returning as the shop emptied. The bell above the door jingled one last time. Then there was only quiet. Menma leaned against the counter, watching the steam curl from the remaining bowls. The soft hum of the city seeped through the glass, muted by the late hour. Behind him, Tachi had already drifted to sleep on the back bench, his small hands clutched around a half-finished worksheet. Rumi sat alone at the corner table, her ramen long gone, the chopsticks resting neatly across the bowl. The light from the sign outside washed over her, tinting her skin in soft blue and violet hues. Her braids shimmered faintly, violet fading into silver near the ends. It wasn't the kind of beauty that asked to be seen, it just was, quiet and natural, like the calm after a storm. Menma found himself studying her longer than he meant to. The glow beneath her skin caught his eye again, the faint, living lines that traced her arms, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. They weren't human. He knew that much instantly. His first thought was GWMA. That same cold energy, that same faint distortion in the air. It set every instinct in him on edge. She didn't feel like a threat, but he'd learned long ago that danger didn't always come roaring, it could walk in quiet, wearing a soft face and a trembling smile. He turned away, busying himself with stacking dishes. The motion helped steady the uneasy rhythm in his chest. He didn't know who she was or what she wanted, but he couldn't let his guard down. Still, as he glanced back, he saw the way she held herself, small, tired, like someone trying not to fall apart. Her eyes were distant, the kind of lost he recognized all too well. It tugged at something in him he'd tried to bury. Don't get involved, he warned himself. You've seen what happens when you care. But when she shivered, the faintest tremor running through her shoulders, he sighed quietly. His voice broke the silence, rough but not unkind. You can stay a bit if you need to, he said, his tone deliberately casual. Shop's closing soon. I don't mind locking up after. Rumi looked up, startled. For a moment, she said nothing, only blinked at him as if trying to decide whether to trust the kindness. Then she gave a small nod. Menma nodded back, turning away before she could see the flicker of something softer in his expression. Just don't touch anything cursed, he added under his breath, more habit than joke. She didn't answer, but he caught the faintest curve of a smile. The clock ticked quietly in the corner. The shop's lights dimmed, leaving only the glow from the sign and the soft breathing of the boy asleep in the back. Menma wiped down the counter one last time, letting the rhythm calm his thoughts. He told himself he was only helping out of decency. That it didn't mean anything. But as he glanced once more at the girl by the window, the blue glow painting her skin, her gaze distant and weary, he knew that wasn't true. Something about her pulled at him, quietly, insistently. And for tonight, at least, he didn't have the heart to turn her away. A sharp trill of a phone cut through the quiet, yanking her out of her thoughts. Menma's frown deepened as he picked up the call. Hey, Yumi, yeah, Tachi's here, he said, voice tight but controlled. A slow sigh escaped him. I'm closing the store now. Another groan followed. I told you, Yumi, I've always closed at 11. I love having Tachi here, but I'm not a babysitter. Rumi tried not to listen, really. She did. And yet, the conversation pulled her in, her curiosity stronger than her restraint. She leaned slightly closer, pretending to stretch, straining just enough to catch every word. He'll be at my house tonight, and I'll drop him off at school tomorrow. Just be careful, Menma said before hanging up. Finally aware of her presence, Menma's gaze snapped to her. The warmth she'd glimpsed before hardened into alert caution. Shop's closing, he said, his stance shifting, shoulders squared, hands resting loosely but deliberately at his sides. This is the part where you report to Jiraiya. Rumi's pulse quickened. She straightened her back, eyes flashing with defiance. Jiraiya? How do you know of him? And I'm not with him, I'm a hunter. Menma's brow furrowed, a flicker of genuine curiosity softening the edge in his eyes. What's a hunter? She clenched her fists at her sides, feeling the tension coil in her chest. We seal the Han moon and protect the innocents from demons, she said firmly, her voice gaining strength, and that goes double against Jiraiya. Her brown eyes narrowed as she took a step closer. But you still didn't answer my first question. Menma leaned back slightly, folding his arms. His voice was lower now, calm but edged with something unreadable. Frankly? That's none of your business. And how do you protect humans when you're a demon? It wasn't an accusation. Not quite. But it wasn't gentle, either. Something about the way he said it, direct, measured, made her pulse skip. She didn't like the insinuation, but she couldn't deny the weight behind his words. Rumi's shoulders tensed. She had never told anyone about her patterns. Only Celine knew. And yet this stranger, this Menma, already seemed to know. My father was a demon, she blurted before she could stop herself, words tumbling out in a rush. So I'm half demon. But if we make the Han moon golden, then my patterns will go away. I can finally be free, no one will ever know. It came out almost rehearsed, as if she'd been waiting her whole life to explain it, desperate for him to believe her. She didn't even know why she was defending herself to him. But for some reason, she didn't want him to think badly of her. For a long moment, he just looked at her. His face softened, his eyes carrying something she couldn't name. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, almost gentle. Why would you want to get rid of who you are? Her breath hitched. Who I am? Who I am? Her voice broke into a raw cry. This is a curse. I can never be who I pretend to be because of these patterns. She held out her arms, the dark lines etched across her skin trembling with her frustration. I'm a monster. Tears blurred her vision. The word made him flinch. His jaw tightened, and then, as if answering her accusation, his own skin lit with red markings. They crawled across his body in sharp, burning lines patterns, like hers, but deeper, fiercer. They looked deadly and appealing all at once. Rumi staggered back. "You're a demon." The words left her like venom, though her voice shook with fear and confusion. And then, just as quickly, the red faded from his skin, leaving him closed off, guarded again. "I don't have time for this," he muttered, voice clipped. "I'm going home. Don't come back here, Hunter or not, I can't trust you." "Wait." She reached out on instinct, fingers brushing his hand. The moment they touched, a shimmer ran up both their arms. Her blue patterns flared to violet, his crimson shifting the same two colors bleeding into one brief flash of purple before fading. He ripped his hand away like it burned. "Don't touch me." His voice cracked, unsteady in a way that betrayed the control he usually carried. "Please," Rumi whispered, her chest tight. "Don't tell anyone about me. Please." His back was already turned, shoulders rigid. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then his voice came low, quiet, weighted with something she couldn't quite name. "I won't. But it's hard to hear you call yourself a monster when you're talking about me too." And with that, he grabbed Tachi, somehow still sleeping, and walked into the night. Rumi watched him walk off into the night, not calling out after him. She wanted to. A part of her burned to stop him, to take back what she said. But the words stuck in her throat. She shouldn't have judged him like that. Still, what could she even say? "Sorry, you're not a monster." But wasn't he? Celine always said all demons were bad. Always. No exceptions. But if that was true, then what about her mother? Was she bad for loving her father? For having her? Her head throbbed, thoughts tangling tighter the more she tried to untangle them. And that thing, whatever just happened between their patterns, what was that? That violet spark when their skin touched? Did all demons do that? Somehow she doubted it. Somehow it felt different. But she was scared to admit anything else, even to herself. Her phone buzzed in her hand, snapping her out of it. She hadn't even checked since all this started. The screen lit up with a wall of notifications: 68 missed calls, 25 unread messages. Mira, Corey, Bobby. Oh brother. She was so dead. Rumi glanced around, panicked, tugging at her sleeves. She needed to cover her patterns before anyone else saw. Her eyes landed on the jacket Menma had draped over Tachi earlier. He must have dropped it when he left. She hesitated, then picked it up. It smelled faintly like him: smoke, rain, and something sharper she couldn't place. She shook the thought from her head and slipped it on. It hung heavy on her shoulders, the sleeves swallowing her hands, but it covered everything. Good enough. Sighing, she pulled in a breath and hit Myra's name. The line barely rang once before Myra's voice exploded through the speaker. "Where the hell have you been? Where the hell have you been?" Myra's voice cracked through the phone so sharp Rumi winced, holding it a little away from her ear. Just pick me up," Rumi cut her off, her voice tighter than she meant. "I'll send you the address." There was a pause, Mira breathing hard like she wanted to scream again but holding it back. "You'd better," she snapped finally. "Because when I get there, you're explaining everything." Rumi hung up before Mira could say anything else. She let out a shaky breath, staring down at the phone in her hand. Explaining everything wasn't an option. Not about her patterns. Not about Menma. Not about that flash of violet between them. She shoved the phone into her pocket, tugged Menma's jacket tighter around herself, and sat down on the curb to wait. The night felt heavier now, like the shadows were listening. Rumi told them she'd just gotten lost. The words came out too fast, too flimsy, but she stuck with it. Myra's eyes narrowed like she wanted to push, but Zoey pulled her into a hug before she could. Bobby muttered something about putting a tracker on her next time, trying to lighten the air, but even he sounded a little shaken. They didn't believe her completely. She could feel it. But none of them pressed, maybe because they were too relieved, maybe because they didn't want to fight tonight. By the time she slipped into her pajamas and let her head hit the pillow, she was gone. Sleep dragged her under like a weight. Rumi drifted into a dream. She found herself standing by a swing set. A little boy sat there, legs too short to reach the ground. His hair was the color of sunlight, messy, sticking out in every direction. From this angle, she couldn't see his face, but he couldn't have been older than 5. "Why does everyone hate me?" he asked softly. His voice didn't sound sad so much as tired, like he'd already accepted the answer. He kicked his legs back and forth, swinging lazily, his small body weighed down by something too heavy for him. Some older kids wandered over. Their laughter was sharp, cruel, the kind that makes the air colder. "Why are you here, demon?" one of them sneered. "My mother said you shouldn't even be alive." The others chuckled, feeding off each other's meanness. "Please leave me alone," the boy said. His voice was flat, like he'd rehearsed this line 100 times before. Rumi's chest ached. She tried to yell at them, to shove them away, but her voice didn't reach them. It was like she wasn't even there. "My little brother said you tried to play with him. Why are you trying to influence my family, monster?" The ringleader spat, then shoved him hard. The boy tumbled off the swing and landed with a thud. When he looked up, Rumi's breath caught. His face was heartbreakingly small, still soft with baby fat, with 3 whisker marks etched on each cheek. His eyes, an endless, striking blue, were full of sadness. Rumi reached out instinctively, but her hands slipped straight through him. The older boy kicked him in the ribs. "Why don't you just find a corner and die? No one wants you here." They left laughing, leaving him on the dirt. The child didn't cry. He just pushed himself back to his feet, dusted off his little shorts, and started walking. His silence was worse than screaming. Rumi followed. She didn't know why, only that she couldn't let him walk alone. The village around them looked ancient, like she'd stepped back 100 years. The market stalls were lined with food and wares, but every adult they passed recoiled, glaring at the boy like he carried disease. Some turned away. Others stared daggers. None looked at him with kindness. Her stomach turned. This wasn't just bullying, this was exile. His stomach growled loudly, the kind of sound that came from days without a real meal. He fished a few coins out of his pocket. Barely enough for a scrap of bread. Nobody stopped to help. To them, he was less than nothing. A vendor across the way hesitated, holding out a warm piece of bread. The boy's eyes flicked toward it, hope sparking for just a heartbeat, but the vendor's gaze hardened at the last moment, and they drew back. The almost kindness hung in the air like a razor, cutting deeper than the open cruelty. He walked into a crumbling apartment building, the kind that looked one storm away from collapse. Rumi followed him inside. The room he stepped into was bare. No photos, no toys, no warmth. It looked more like a hotel room than a home. The only thing that seemed cared for was a tiny plant sitting on the windowsill. The boy picked up a chipped cup of water and gently poured it over the soil. "Uki-kun, you gotta drink so you can get big," he said, raising his arms to show the size. "I wonder if plants get lonely too." "But never. Fear Naruto is here to make sure you never are." He waited for an answer that never came, then sighed. His little shoulders slumped. "I love you, Uki. I wish you could love me too." His voice cracked on the word love. He laid back on the stiff bed, staring at the ceiling. Silent tears slipped down his cheeks, no sobbing, no sniffles, just quiet streaks of grief. Like he'd taught himself he wasn't allowed to cry out loud. "I wish someone would want me. I wish I had parents too," he whispered. Then, with a sad little smile that shouldn't belong on a child's face, "Oh well. It's not like anyone wants a monster." The words hit Rumi like a fist to the chest. Her breath caught. That was Menma. She knew it. The hair, the face, even the voice. Only the eyes were different. These were sapphire, bright and fragile, while Menma's were amethyst, heavier, darker, but no less appealing. Before she could reach for him again, the dream shattered like glass. She woke to Zoey shaking her hand on Rumi's arm. "What are you doing in my room?" Rumi groaned, voice still heavy from sleep. "We're going to get some voice tonics today," Zoey said quickly. "I know a guy, totally legit." Rumi's chest rose and fell too fast, her skin damp with sweat. The fragments of the dream clung to her like wet clothes, refusing to peel off. The boy's voice still echoed in her head, "I love you and I wish you could love me too." She pressed a hand against her mouth, afraid if she breathed too loud, the ache inside her would spill out. That boy wasn't just some random dream. She knew it. The sapphire eyes gave it away. That was Menma before the weight, before the anger, before the mask. And she had told him, she had looked him in the face and told him she hated what he was. Her stomach twisted. How could she have said that, knowing now what he'd endured? But at the same time, wasn't it true? He wasn't the boy with the plant anymore. He wasn't gentle hands and quiet hopes. He was sharper, harder, carrying something that scared her. Rumi turned over in bed, curling into the blanket, hiding her face from the sunlight. The fragments of the dream bled into reality, her ears ringing faintly, the soft scrape of the wind against her window like ghostly whispers. Why did seeing him hurt like this make her want to reach out and yet run away at the same time? Even in the quiet, she could feel the dream's weight pressing down, heavy and uncompromising. It wasn't just a memory. It was a warning, a window into a life she'd only glimpsed but could never forget. And somehow, she knew Menma, in all his danger, all his demons, and all his patterns, had carried that same loneliness with him through every step. They left their condo in long hoods pulled up to hide from fans. Last thing they needed was a flash mob popping up. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Mira asked Zoey bluntly. "Like how legit is legit with you?" Zoey puffed out her cheeks. "Hey, when have I ever let y'all down? All my sources are legit." Mira started counting on her fingers. "There was the exotic animal petting zoo that was actually the black market," she said. "There was the circus," she added air quotes around circus, "that turned out to be escaped convicts fleeing the country," she finished, smiling. Zoey looked miffed. "Okay, so maybe a couple times, but this one is legit," she said, hooking an arm around Rumi's neck. "Tell her, Rumi." "What?" Rumi said, clearly snapped out of her thoughts. "Yeah, sure, Zoey," Rumi muttered. Mira narrowed her eyes. "You okay, Rumi? You've been awfully quiet and don't think we believed your getting lost story," she said. "So now that Bobby's not here, what really happened?" she whispered. "Nothing. I just got lost, I promise," Rumi said quickly. "Oh, come off it, Rumi. We tried calling so many times. Whatever you were doing must have kept you busy." "Was it a guy?" Zoe yelled, bouncing excitedly. "No, it can't be. Wait, why are you blushing, Rumi?" Rumi froze, her cheeks heating up, though not from what Zoe thought. She tugged at the hem of her hoodie, wishing she could disappear into it. I said it's nothing," she stammered, trying to force her voice calm. Zoe grinned like she'd already won. Sure. Nothing makes you blush like that, Rumi. Not even a guy, huh? Come on, spill it." Mira leaned in, narrowing her eyes, folding her arms. "Yeah, seriously. You've been acting weird all morning. We know you're hiding something." Rumi's hands tightened into fists inside her hoodie pockets. She wanted to explain, wanted to tell them, but the words would have had to include Menma, patterns, Han-moon energy, and she couldn't. Not yet. Not ever. I just tripped over a puddle, okay?" she blurted, desperate. "Got all wet, that's why I'm flushed." Zoe raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. Sure, Rumi. Totally believable," she said, smirking. "Anyway, focus. We've got a legit source waiting, and you're about to get the best voice tonic of your life. No more excuses." Mira groaned. "I swear, Zoe, if this ends up being another circus or black market exotic pet fiasco, I'm holding you personally accountable. Rumi let out a small laugh, though it sounded tighter than usual. Her heart still raced not from embarrassment at the teasing, but from the echo of that dream, from the sapphire eyes of the little boy she knew all too well. She shoved the thoughts down, forcing herself to focus on the present. Yes, yes, she said, forcing cheer into her voice. Let's just go get these tonics before Zoey drags us into another adventure I'll never survive. Zoey clapped her hands. Atta girl. That's the spirit. Come on, Rumi, we're on a mission. Rumi followed, hood still up, trying not to let her pulse betray the way her mind was tangled between a dream, the boy, and the man she couldn't stop thinking about. Oh, hello there. You must be Huntrx. The doctor walked in, causing the three girls to jump. How did you figure that out? Rumi questioned him, but the doctor just chuckled. Well, it's easy to spot. You're not the first K-pop band I have had over here. I'm Dr. Han. The doctor answered/introduced himself before he focused on Rumi. And you must be the one having problems. Come. Sit. Sit. He offered her a chair as Rumi looked at him skeptically but followed. The doctor hummed, his eyes growing big, practically popping out of his eye sockets. I see. Well, not really. You have lots of walls up. Rumi was slightly caught off guard. Wow, he's good, Zoey and Mira said at the same time. So many walls, the doctor stated again. Rumi looked offended. Walls? I don't have walls. Mira nodded. You're right, he is good. Zoey huffed at that. I'm just trying to stay focused, Rumi deflected, but the doctor shook his head. Focus is good, but focusing on one part leads to ignoring other parts, making you separated, isolated. Ooh. Emotionally closed off? Zoey questioned. The doctor nodded. And she's a workaholic, who doesn't know how to relax, Mira added. I know how to relax. Rumi protested. I bet she refuses to go to the bathhouse. The doctor's words made Zoey's eyes widen. Okay, my gosh, yes. How did you even? Rumi felt creeped out. Dude, we've been trying to take her, Zoey groaned. Forever. Mira and Zoey shouted together. How is this helpful? Rumi demanded. It's helping me a lot. Mira smirked. I can't believe you got all that wisdom just from looking at her, Zoey said in amazement. The doctor turned his eyes on Zoey. Why are you looking at me? Zoey questioned. Eagerness too. Please. Maybe a little too eager. Zoey chuckled nervously. What? I'm not like that. You tell me if I was like that, right? The doctor turned from her to Mira. Don't even try it, Mira warned, staring him down until he backed off. That's right, she smirked. How does this help me get my voice back? Rumi tried again. As I said, to treat the part, we must understand the whole. That's great, but I thought we were here just for your tonics, she pointed out. The doctor nodded. Just give us the voice juice, Mira demanded. He smiled. I know just the tonics you need. He snapped his fingers before ushering them out of the office. Rumi's eyes froze on a photo hanging slightly crooked on the wall. Dr. Han stood outside a ramen shop, smiling wide. And next to him Menma. Same face, same build, same warm smile. Her throat tightened. What's this? She asked as Dr. Han returned with the tonic, her finger pointing sharply at the frame. Dr. Han smiled as he carefully lifted the photo from the wall. This was a celebration for the new orphanage opening up, he explained warmly. Menma offered all the orphans free ramen after school, just to make sure none went hungry. A wonderful man in our community. Zoey and Mira smiled at the generosity of the man in the photo, their eyes softening. But Rumi's chest ached. She remembered her dream Menma as a lonely, hungry child, no help, no support. Does he make good ramen? Zoey asked suddenly. Some of the best ramen I've ever tasted. Here, Dr. Han slipped her a folded paper with the address. Let's do it. Zoey cried. I'm down, Mira added. Both turned to Rumi. She forced a smile, nerves coiling in her stomach. Menma had told her not to come back. But if she refused, they'd start asking questions. That sounds lovely, she managed. They walked into the ramen shop. Zoey practically vibrated with excitement. Mira smiled, relaxed. Rumi felt a knot in her stomach. Last time she'd been here, Menma had made it clear he didn't trust her. Would he expose her? Pretend she was a stranger? She didn't know. The shop was peaceful, hypnotic. They slid into a booth unnoticed. Menma appeared. Rumi caught a flicker of recognition in his eyes, but it vanished. He greeted Zoey warmly. Winking even. Mira got the same treatment, full of humor and ease. Then he turned to Rumi. Her heart stilled. She stammered out a miso order. His smile toward her was polite, careful, distant. Not cold, just held back. He walked away. Her chest tightened. It hurt that he couldn't smile at her genuinely. And yet she understood why. They settled into the booth. Zoey chattered. Mira sipped tea. Rumi's gaze stayed pinned on Menma. He moved with fluid precision. Kind to everyone else. Gentle with a child at another table. Why couldn't he smile like that at her? The pull grew stronger, confusing and heavy. Zoey snapped her fingers in front of her face. Earth to Rumi. Rumi forced a smile. Yeah, I'm here. But her eyes drifted again. Menma reappeared with ramen. Here we go, he announced brightly. Zoey beamed. Mira grinned. Then he turned to Rumi. Their eyes met. A flash fear? Vulnerability? The feeling of teetering on an edge he didn't want to fall from. He blinked it away, mask slipping back on. For you, he murmured, sliding her bowl over gently. Her fingers trembled around her chopsticks. He moved on, but the echo of that vulnerability lingered. He joked with Zoey. Teased Mira. Smiled easily. But each time his gaze flicked toward Rumi, something tightened in his shoulders. A tremor in his hand. Words swallowed back. Rumi felt it like a whisper against her ribs. That pull again. Stronger. She did not understand it. But she couldn't deny it. When they finished eating, Menma disappeared into the kitchen. He didn't reemerge until they stood to pay. His eyes were wet. His posture a little disheveled. But he smiled anyway. When he met Rumi's gaze, she froze. Pain. So clear it nearly knocked the breath out of her. And she saw the boy from her dream in him, all at once. He eased. Offered a real smile one meant only for her. Her hands trembled. She fumbled her card. Heat bloomed in her face. Zoey and Mira probably teased her behind her back. But Rumi didn't care. Menma had smiled at her. Really smiled. Her chest fluttered. Something bright and fragile filled her. She managed a stuttered goodbye. Outside, Zoey and Mira teased her mercilessly. Rumi tried to brush them off, smiling shyly. She lifted the receipt. And froze. A note was scribbled on the back. The protection of innocence will always welcome you, smiley face. Her heart jumped. A bright smile broke across her face. She folded the receipt carefully and ran to catch up with her friends. Menma put Tachi to bed and sighed. Being called a monster both of them had hurt more than he would admit. He had tried all his life to prove he wasn't one. But nothing ever worked. The world he knew was gone. His friends dead. His failure absolute. He fled instead of dying with them. Coward. He hated himself for it. He tried so hard to become someone good in this new world. Every day was still a battle. He drifted to sleep heavy with memories. he found himself walking a quiet trail in a dream. A little girl with violet hair sat singing while an older woman brushed her hair. Rumi. 5 years old. Her voice soft, pure, yet full of conviction. We are hunters, voices strong. Slaying demons with our song. He ached at the innocence in it. Then. Celine, do hunters kill all demons? Yes. Rumi whispered, anything with patterns. Menma felt something inside him cave. Celine told her to hide her patterns. To become normal. Rumi whispered the word like a curse. He understood. He saw now, she wasn't naturally cruel. She was taught to hate herself and anything like her. He felt guilt. And hope. Understanding her pain meant he could meet her there. Maybe even help her carry it. It terrified him. He woke with his heart heavy but clearer. After dropping Tachi off, Menma returned to the shop. He worked through the motions. But Rumi's childhood song echoed in his mind. Then she walked in. Hood up. Nervous. He pretended not to recognize her. He stayed professional. With Zoey and Mira he smiled easily. Then he turned to Rumi. Her eyes stopped him. He swallowed a sob. Hinata flashed across his mind, a wound still raw. He kept himself composed. But when he adjusted the napkin for her, he cracked. He escaped into the back, collapsing against the counter. The memories haunted him. His losses. Hinata. His failures. He reminded himself to stay distant. She didn't come for him. He submerged himself in work, but her gaze lingered on him like a quiet echo. When he finally returned to the dining room, he was still shaken. But he saw her watching him, concern hidden, hands trembling. Pain swam in his own eyes. He let the mask slip. Just for a moment. And he smiled at her. A real smile. A small kindness. A fragile connection. A seed of hope. He watched her light up, watched her stutter out a goodbye. It was enough. He returned to the kitchen with a heart both heavier and lighter than before. GWIMA stared down his subordinate, his flames climbing higher, the heat pressing against the stone walls like a furnace. You mean to tell me, he said slowly, every word dripping with fury, you have nothing, no new trace of this demon? The firelight warped across Jinu's face. He swallowed hard, his throat clicking. Every trail leads to a dead end, he stammered. The red energy that shattered the Han moon, it hides him. Even demons can't pierce it. Silence stretched, heavier than the heat. The fire around GWIMA swelled until Jinu thought the air itself might ignite. Incompetent fool, GWIMA hissed. This demon walks my territory, and yet he slips through your fingers. You are unfit to lead. I will appoint another. Jinu tried to protest. But, sir. No. GWMA's flames cracked like a WHP. You have failed me, Jinu. I grow impatient. With a gesture, he summoned another demon. The ground split with a deafening crack, stone shattering as the figure landed hard. His body was patterned in jagged black markings like living tattoos, pulsing with power. But it was his eyes that froze Jinu in place, red, with a black star burning in each pupil. Indra, GWIMA said, voice thick with satisfaction. It seems I have need of your assistance. Indra's gaze lifted, sharp as a blade. I do not involve myself in petty errands, GWIMA. Or have you forgotten my price? Jinu's eyes widened. No one spoke to the Demon King like that. Yes, GWIMA waved the words away, letting the insolence wash over him. You wish to return home. Perhaps this quarry is your key. His presence is unlike anything I've felt before. Bring him to me alive. Then you may do as you please with him. Indra considered, then gave a slight nod. Very well. I will track him. He turned, ready to depart, when GWMA's voice cut across the chamber. Jinwoo will show you the team I've assembled. Work with them. Indra's lip curled. I have no need for weaklings. They would only slow me down. His burning stare fell on Jinwoo, and for a moment the lesser demon felt himself shrinking, insignificant. A thunderclap shook the chamber as Indra vanished, gone to the human world above. GWMA's gaze slid back to Jinwoo, cold and merciless. Make yourself useful. Watch the hunters. Dismissed. In the next breath, Jinwoo found himself move into the human world once more, the echo of GWMA's command still ringing in his ears. Menma went along his day, working, talking to Miss Shio about her cats, helping Tachi with his homework, but he couldn't put his head into it. Every day felt slow in his mind, all he could think of was her, the dream playing over and over, like a shadow pressing against his chest. He told himself he was just worried, trying to help her out. But it was so much more than that, he knew it. Even if he couldn't say it out loud or admit it to himself. He felt drawn to her. He replayed her blush, the way her eyes lit up when he had smiled at her. He wanted to know everything about her, but it was all for naught. From what he heard, she was a giant K-pop star in eternal stardom. What would she do with a ramen shop owner? He sometimes couldn't even look himself in the mirror. And that wasn't even accounting for how she still couldn't accept her demon side. Trained to hunt demons and kill him, it didn't even matter if he wasn't originally a demon or even from this world. He was foolish, downright stupid for wanting to spend time with her, even as friends. Something in his gut, his soul if he still had one, felt pulled to her, wanting to be near her. Like a drag with no cure, withdrawals clawing at his chest, making his heart ache for a woman he didn't even know that well. But he knew her pain. He had always had that ability to understand people's pain and relate. The Sage of Six Paths had said it was what he would use to save the world, break the curse of hatred. But that was all a lie. His world was gone now. Was it a lie? He remembered how he fought Gaara, a psychopath intent on killing, and changed him with love, helping him embrace his siblings. Niji, with his hatred of the main branch of his clan, became kinder, KK more loving to Hinata after they fought. And Sasuke, a rogue shinobi intent on destroying the village, had joined the right side and died, a valuable ally. He knew he could help Rumi, but he would have to be careful. She didn't need any more confusion in her life. A week had passed since he last saw her. He kept working, the steam of the ramen bowls curling into the warm shop air, the clatter of spoons and bowls filling the quiet spaces, but his mind kept wandering. Every time the bell above the door jingled, he would look up, hoping it was Rumi. Every time it wasn't, the disappointment hit like a cold draft, and he forced a smile, greeting each customer as though they were her. The scent of broth and noodles mixed with the ache in his chest, a constant reminder of her absence. On Friday, he heard the bell jingle and looked up, expecting another customer, but it was Rumi. Just her, this time. His smile came naturally, almost instinctively, genuine and unguarded. She had a hoodie pulled over her head, and he felt a small relief, glad there wouldn't be a flash mob at his store. The faint scent of her shampoo reached him even through the fabric, and his chest tightened just a little. His fingers itched to brush a stray hair from her face, but he resisted. She smiled and waved, moving up to the bar and taking a seat. "You know," he said, smiling, "you could always eat in the back of the kitchen if you want to take that hoodie off." Ian called out from across the room, "Ho ho ho. She must be pretty close to your heart if you're giving her special treatment like that." Menma's cheeks flushed. His hands fidgeted with a towel at the counter. "Stupid, nosy drunks," he muttered under his breath. His heart thumped faster than usual, and he caught himself glancing at her fingers tracing the edge of her hoodie. Rumi giggled softly at his flustered expression, and the sound made him feel warmth pooling in his chest. "Thanks, Menma, but I can sit out here for now," she said. He smiled again, feeling the familiar tug in his chest. "The offer's always open, you know." The steam from the ramen bowls curled around them, the soft clatter of spoons and chopsticks filling the space, but for a moment, Menma barely noticed it. He just watched her, noticing the way her eyes caught the light, the tiny movements of her hands, trying not to let his heart run away with him. Rumi picked at the edge of her hoodie, tugging at the strings absent-mindedly. Menma found himself watching her hands more than her face, each subtle motion mesmerizing in its simplicity. "So how's the shop been?" she asked, her voice soft, curious. "Same as always," he replied, though his eyes flicked toward her every few seconds. "Busy enough to keep me sane." He cleared his throat, forcing casualness into the words. "You've been busy too, I'm guessing?" She nodded, glancing down at her cup, then back up, her eyes catching his. "Yeah, it's been non-stop. Sometimes I just want a normal day. Like today." Menma felt a pang in his chest. A normal day, if only it could be that simple. "Well, normal is overrated anyway," he said, giving a small smile, trying to hide how much he wanted that for her. He could feel the warmth of his own hands, tense on the counter, and had to take a slow breath to steady himself. There was a beat of silence. The only sounds were the soft clink of bowls, the hiss of steam, and the faint hum of the city outside. Menma's fingers itched to reach across the counter, to brush a stray strand of hair from her face, but he froze, caught between longing and respect. "You always seem calm," Rumi said quietly, almost to herself. "Even when everything's chaotic." He shrugged, a little awkwardly. "I try. Some days it works better than others." His heart thumped faster, each word heavier than intended. "I'm just glad you came back after what happened," he said, scratching the back of his head, a habit he'd picked up from Irika. Rumi's lips curved into a small smile, real and fleeting, but enough to make him feel both grounded and unsteady at the same time. Menma caught himself staring, his pulse quickening. Did she know the effect she had on him? "After your note, how could I say no?" she said softly. "I meant it too. This is a place to get away from the chaos and breathe a small break from life," he said, holding her gaze a second longer than usual, feeling the pull in his chest grow heavier. For a moment, his tongue almost slipped. "I'm really glad you're here, Rumi. More than you know." He stopped himself, clearing his throat instead, forcing a casual smile. "Well, anyway, you know I mean it. Oi, Menma, quit flirting with your girlfriend and get me another rice wine," Ian yelled, causing the mostly empty store to chuckle. Menma's cheeks burned, his hands tightening slightly on the towel. He quickly went to get Yin's drink, sneaking a glance at Rumi as she smiled, her eyes twinkling. The warmth of her presence lingered long after he returned, leaving him both calm and restless at the same time. "Another miso for you today," he said after he returned. "Sure, that sounds great," she said casually, still smiling. His heart thudded so fast it felt like it might burst, and for a moment, he had to steady his hands on the counter. He slipped to the back to make it, taking a slow breath as the warm, familiar smell of broth and simmering ingredients filled the kitchen. "What is happening to me?" he thought. "Why am I so nervous all of a sudden? I've never felt this way before." Then it hit him like a ton of bricks, he had never experienced this before. With Sakura, as kids, it had been easy. He was young, and he knew she loved Sasuke, so he never got flustered around her. If anything, she had been like a sister, something it had taken him 5 years to realize he no longer loved her as anything more. And with Hinata, the war had happened so fast. Between training and fighting, they never had time to explore anything together. He never got to examine his feelings. He smiled faintly, feeling the warmth from the kitchen sink seep into his arms. So this is what a real crush feels like. He hated that he was happy like this when nothing could ever happen between them. They were both too hurt. But maybe he could just enjoy being normal, like this, for a while. It couldn't hurt, right? When he brought out the ramen, he noticed everyone but Rumi had paid and left. The quiet of the shop settled around them, broken only by the soft clatter of chopsticks and the faint hiss of steam from the miso bowl. It was just the two of them. He set the bowl in front of her. "Here you go. I'm gonna start closing for the night, you just enjoy this. It's on the house." She smiled, the glow from the overhead light catching in her eyes. "Thanks, but you know I can pay, right?" consider this an apology for how I treated you the first time you came here." She laughed softly, the sound curling around him like warm air. "To be fair, I wasn't exactly the ideal customer either." "I know," he laughed, then looked serious. "But for real, Rumi, I'm here for you." She seemed conflicted for a moment, tracing the rim of her bowl with her fingers, then smiled. Menma could see the struggle behind her eyes, but he wouldn't push after all. He wasn't exactly an open book either. The soft hum of the city outside seeped in through the open door, and the steam rising from the ramen curled around them, carrying a faint scent of miso and warmth that made the shop feel smaller, closer. Shrugging, he went to the back to start cleaning, but he kept stealing glances at her, the tug in his chest growing heavier with each one. Rumi didn't know why she was here. Well, that wasn't entirely true. She knew why. She couldn't get him out of her thoughts, and just being away for a week had driven her a little crazy. He was always there, in the quiet moments, the corners of her mind. After seeing him that day with Mira and Zoey, it was easier for her voice to stay steady. She wasn't struggling as much, but she didn't know why. His very presence seemed to wash away all of her insecurities, at least for a moment. So when Bobby said they could have the night off, she had snuck out, heading straight here. Chatting with him, just being near him, she couldn't help smiling, feeling at ease in a way she hadn't in a long time. But he was a demon. Celine had said there were no good demons. Even if he hadn't been with GWIMA when the Han moon turned golden, he'd probably be sealed anyway. And yet, when he told her he was there for her, she almost wanted to spill all of her thoughts, all of her worries, but she couldn't. Somehow, she had to distance herself. She couldn't keep seeing him. It would only hurt more when he was gone. Even now, she couldn't imagine never seeing him again, or worse, having to kill him. The thought alone made her tear up. How could she do that to him? He was so good. He posed no threat to humans as far as she could tell. He seemed to protect them, care for them, love them. All things Celine had said were impossible for demons to do or feel. Ugh. She didn't know what to think or how to feel. A gentle poke to her shoulder pulled her out of her spiraling thoughts. She looked up to see Menma smiling at her. "Your ramen's going to go cold," he chuckled. "Do you want it to go?" She smiled. "That would be nice." Menma nodded and grabbed her bowl, adding 2 more to the bag. "For your friends," he said, smiling. "Oh no, it's okay, you don't have to do that," she said, worried. She really didn't want to explain why she'd come back here to them. "It's fine, Rumi," he chuckled. "I had extra ramen, and I don't like to waste food, you know." She remembered the dream she had had of the hungry Menma as a child and nodded. "Okay, thanks." She got up to leave and waited outside as he locked up. He closed the doors and joined her, brushing a hand over his head in the faint evening light. "Would you like me to walk you back to your place?" he offered, extending his hand. She almost took it, but then remembered her promise to herself to keep her distance. "No, it's all right. Thank you for the ramen," she said softly. He smiled, scratching the back of his head. "It's no problem. I hope you can deal with your problems, and remember, I'm always here for you." Seeing him there, smiling at her, made her heart leap. But she didn't act on it. She returned his smile and began to leave. Before she could go too far, he grabbed her hand. A jolt of electricity surged through them both. Her voice hitched, but Menma seemed not to notice. He pressed a slip of paper into her palm, a phone number written neatly across it. "If you ever want to talk, call me," he said, and with that, he walked the other way toward his apartment, oblivious to the way Rumi looked at the number, her eyes conflicted, before slipping it carefully into her pocket. She lingered a heartbeat longer, caught between longing and restraint, then finally walked home. Neither of them noticed the shadow watching from afar. Red eyes with black stars burned in the darkness, unblinking, unmoving. "A demon and a hunter, eh?" Indra's voice hissed through the night. He tilted his head, a faint smirk curling his lips. "I've always liked a battle. Don't disappoint me, brother." With a whisper of motion, he vanished into the darkness, leaving the world above unaware of the danger that had already begun to close in. Naruto Menma now was just flipping the ramen shop sign back to open when his phone buzzed in his hand. A message from Rumi lit up the screen. "Do you want to go somewhere?" He blinked, caught off guard in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. Somewhere? With her? His thumb hovered over the keyboard, debating how not to sound too eager, but the reply slipped out before he could overthink it. "Where?" She responded instantly. "I don't know." That was enough to make him smile a small, helpless curve at the corner of his mouth. She didn't have a plan, she just wanted him with her. He typed back one word. "Sure." He hadn't even lowered the phone before. 3 sharp knocks rattled the front door. Menma froze, a quiet laugh caught in his chest. She didn't even pretend she wasn't waiting for his answer. When he turned, he found an absurd little figure pressed up against the glass, yellow bucket hat, oversized sunglasses, hoodie pulled so tight her face was a perfect pink circle of suspicion. She looked like a celebrity escaping paparazzi and an angry mushroom at the same time. Rumi stared at him through the glass, expression stiff, silently begging him not to comment. He opened the door, biting back the laugh threatening to break. "Rumi?" She stiffened like he'd caught her committing a crime. "No," she muttered, then sighed. "Fine. Yes." She scurried inside with the energy of someone trying very hard not to be perceived. Menma flipped the sign back to closed behind her. "Should be fine," he murmured, eyeing her outfit. "Nobody will recognize you. You look like you're about to rob me." She slapped his arm with the indignation of a startled cat. "I'm undercover." "In that?" "Yes," she hissed, pulling the strings tighter until only her eyes showed. "Don't make fun of me." He couldn't help it, his laugh was soft, warm, unguarded. It echoed gently off the empty shop walls, and she peeked out just enough for him to see the faintest twitch of a smile tugging at her lips, embarrassed and sweet. "You were waiting outside for my text, weren't you?" he asked. "I was," she stopped herself, throat tightening. "I was just in the neighborhood." "At 7 in the morning? Coincidences exist." He smiled at her, gentle and amused. She immediately looked away, pretending to study the napkin dispenser like it contained ancient secrets. Rumi's fingers trembled slightly as she gathered the courage to speak. "I didn't think you'd actually say yes," she admitted quietly. "I only texted because I wanted to see you. I don't know why. I just did." That last word landed heavier than she meant it to. Menma swallowed, feeling something old and aching shift in his chest. This girl, wrapped up like a suspicious dumpling and pretending she wasn't terrified, had come here for him. No stage lights, no cameras, no hunter duty, just Rumi, nervous and real in a way that made his heart stutter. He stepped closer, his voice softer than he intended. "Then let's go wherever you want." Her breath caught, eyes widening just a little at how easily he said it. His hand hovered between them, hesitant, unsure, then he offered it to her, palm up, waiting, patient. Rumi stared at his hand like it contained danger and possibility in equal measure. Touching him would make the moment real. Touching him would mean admitting she wasn't here for a random outing, she was here because she couldn't stay away. Slowly, with a shy, trembling exhale, she placed her hand in his. Her fingers curled gently around his own, fitting there like she had always belonged. Heat bloomed up her neck, half hidden by the hoodie. "Don't make this weird," she whispered. "Wouldn't dream of it," Menma murmured, though the smile tugging at his mouth said otherwise. She tried to hide her face again, tugging the hood tight, but she didn't let go of his hand. Not even for a moment. They stepped outside together, awkward, hopeful, completely unsure where they were going, but the look she shot him from beneath her ridiculous disguise made something inside him settle for the first time in years. It didn't matter where they ended up. For the first time, they were walking in the same direction. They walked in silence for a few steps, neither of them acknowledging the subtle glow pulsing beneath their sleeves. Their patterns, his crimson, her sapphire, had shifted the moment their hands touched. Now they shimmered faint lilac, a color that didn't belong to either of them, yet belonged entirely to the space between them. Naruto felt it first, a soft hum under his skin, warm and unfamiliar. Not dangerous but NTMT in a way that rattled him. It didn't feel like power. It felt like something deeper, something old, like their souls were brushing against each other, quietly testing the shape of a connection neither of them understood. He didn't pull his hand away. Not at first. It had been years since he held someone like this, years since comfort felt natural instead of borrowed. Rumi's hand was small in his, warm and steady despite her nerves. He could feel the faint tremble in her fingers, but she didn't let go either. For a moment, he let himself breathe into it. Let himself want it. But the realization hit him too quickly, too much, too soon. With a quiet inhale, he gently released her hand before the moment became something he wasn't ready to face. Or something she might regret. She didn't say anything about it. She didn't have to. They simply continued walking side by side down the quiet morning street, their shoulders brushing now and then, light as a sigh. The city around them hadn't fully woken, so they had the rare gift of silence, no fans, no demons, no responsibilities clawing at their backs. Just the sound of their footsteps. Just the soft rhythm of two people who didn't know where they were going, but didn't mind as long as they were going together. Rumi kept her eyes forward, pretending not to notice when Naruto glanced at her from the corner of his vision. The pink hoodie framed her face like a cocoon, but he could still see the faint flush on her cheeks each time their arms brushed. She didn't speak. He didn't either. Words weren't necessary. The air between them said enough, full of quiet comfort, quiet curiosity, quiet longing neither of them wanted to name. Every so often, Rumi's hand twitched like it wanted to reach for his again. Naruto noticed. He pretended not to. The lilac glow beneath their sleeves slowly faded, but the feeling it left behind didn't. Soft. Electric. Unsettling in the gentlest way. Menma didn't know what it meant. Rumi didn't know how to ask. So they just walked, letting the world shrink around them until all that existed was a pink hood, a hesitant smile, and a boy who wasn't used to being wanted but didn't mind the idea when it came from her. The aquarium sat near the edge of the river, its glass walls catching the early sunlight like a sleeping crystal palace. Rumi stopped in front of it, staring at the shimmering reflections on the surface. "This okay?" Naruto asked quietly. She nodded, tugging her pink hood lower. "Yeah. It feels peaceful." Peaceful was something she desperately needed. Naruto held the door open for her, and as she stepped inside, a cool wash of blue light spilled over them. The chatter of the outside world disappeared behind glass, the water's hush took over, like they'd stepped into someone else's dream. They walked slowly, shoulders drifting close but not touching. The lilac glow beneath their sleeves didn't return, yet the ghost of it lingered in their awareness, hovering like a secret only they shared. Rumi stopped at the first tank. Jellyfish floated like drifting lanterns, their soft pulses illuminating her face in shifting shades of sapphire and gold. She leaned toward the glass, breath fogging faintly, expression gentle in a way Naruto hadn't seen before. "They're appealing," she whispered. Naruto watched her instead of the jellyfish. "You like them?" She nodded. "They move like they don't care who's watching. Just existing." He smiled faintly. "Sounds nice." She turned her head, catching him looking at her instead of the tank. A warm flush touched her cheeks, and she quickly faced forward again. Naruto scratched his cheek, embarrassed at being caught, then followed her deeper into the glowing halls. They passed tunnels of fish silver schools moving like one heartbeat, turtles drifting by so slowly it felt like time bowed to them. The water rippled soft blue against the glass, reflecting gently across Rumi's face. Naruto wanted to memorize the way the light clung to her lashes. At one tank, Rumi pressed her hand lightly to the glass. A manta ray glided beneath her palm as if greeting her. She smiled, soft and small. "You really like this place," Naruto said quietly. "I haven't gone anywhere quiet in a long time," she admitted. "Somewhere I don't have to perform or pretend." He stopped walking. Her words hit him harder than he expected. Because he knew exactly what that felt like. "Hey," he said gently. You don't have to pretend around me. Rumi froze, fingers still resting against the glass. For a moment, she didn't breathe. Even if I'm not human, she whispered. Naruto's chest tightened. He didn't hesitate. Even then. Her shoulders relaxed, the tension melting out of her like thawing ice. A small, fragile smile curved her lips. They walked again, steps slower, closer. By the time they reached the shark tunnel, the world outside them no longer existed. The glass curved above their heads, sharks gliding silently overhead like ancient guardians. Cool shadows swept across them with each pass. Rumi took a slow breath, grounding herself in the quiet pulse of the water. Naruto glanced at her hand hanging loosely by her side, swaying ever so slightly toward his. He didn't grab it. Instead, he walked just close enough that the backs of their fingers brushed with each step, like a word neither of them dared to say. Rumi finally whispered, "I'm glad you came with me." Naruto swallowed. "Me too." The sharks drifted above, the ocean's gravity humming softly through the glass. And in the blue-lit silence of the aquarium, something inside both of them shifted, not quite love, not yet, but something warm and certain beginning to grow in the spaces between their breaths. They sat at a small outdoor table overlooking the aquarium tanks, the glow of drifting jellyfish washing everything in soft blue light. People passed by without recognizing them, thanks to their hoodies and masks. It felt strangely private, like the city had stepped back to give them a moment. Rumi dipped her spoon into her froyo, glancing at him from under her hood. "So," she began carefully, "earlier you said you were never under GWMA. Then how did you become what you are?" Naruto didn't look up. He turned his spoon slowly through the melting swirl, as if the motion steadied him. "I've never belonged to him," he said quietly. "Or to any demon." Rumi blinked. That didn't make sense. "Then how did you end up here? Like this?" Naruto let out a breath. Not long enough to be a sigh, but heavy enough that it hurt Rumi to hear. "It's complicated," he answered. "Too simple. Too gentle. Too rehearsed." But it wasn't hostile, it was protective. A wall built from old wounds, and she could feel it. Rumi hesitated, then asked the question that had been circling since last week. "Were one of your parents a demon?" His hand froze. His heart jumped. Kurama's face, Kurama's laugh, the warmth of him, the loss of him flashed hot and sharp, but Naruto kept his expression calm. "Something like that," he said softly. He didn't lie. He just didn't let the truth out. Rumi studied him, confused. "Hurt?" "No. More like concerned." "You don't have to tell me everything," she murmured. "I just want to understand you." Naruto's spoon stilled completely. He looked up at her then, really looked, and the jellyfish light shimmered between them like a heartbeat. "I know," he said. "And I appreciate that. But some things are hard to talk about." Rumi's chest tightened. She remembered the little boy in her dream, the loneliness, the bruises, the whispered monster. She swallowed hard, forcing the image away. He didn't know she'd seen that. He couldn't. "Okay," she whispered instead. "I won't push." Naruto's shoulders eased, tension loosening just enough for a small smile to form. "Thank you." For a moment they just sat there, quietly eating their froyo. The silence wasn't awkward, it felt like a soft blanket draped over both of them, warm and careful. Then Rumi asked, "So how old are you really?" Naruto's lips twitched. 20. She raised an eyebrow. "Really?" He laughed under his breath, shaking his head. "I'm really 20. I promise I'm not lying." Something about the way he smiled when he said it, boyish, honest, almost shy, made her stomach flip. Another moment passed. Rumi traced the rim of her cup, then tried again. "If you weren't born in GWMA's realm and you weren't controlled by him and your parents aren't demons, then Naruto, where did you come from?" A quiet beat. His gaze softened, but he didn't answer. Inside, the thoughts he'd never speak churned. "Kurama, I'm sorry. Would you even recognize me now?" Would you hate what I became? But none of that reached the surface. Out loud, he only said, somewhere far. Very far. Rumi nodded slowly. She could feel there was more, so much more, but she also felt the boundaries of something fragile. Something that would break if she grabbed too hard. Okay, she said quietly. When you want to tell me, I'll listen. Naruto looked away, trying to hide the way those words shook something deep inside him. Yeah, he murmured. Maybe someday. They fell into silence again. Their hands brushed when they both reached for napkins. A flicker of lilac shimmered under both sleeves, light dancing across their skin like a soft pulse. Neither of them acknowledged it. But neither pulled away. For a while, they just sat there, watching jellyfish float like drifting stars. Not talking. Not explaining. Just sharing the same air. Just being near one another. And somehow, for both of them, that felt like more truth than any answer could have been. The night air outside the aquarium was cool and soft, brushing past them as they stopped at the fork in the sidewalk. Streetlights cast a warm halo over the pavement, catching the faint lilac shimmer still hiding beneath their sleeves. They faced each other, hands slipping apart reluctantly. Rumi pushed her hood back just a little, enough to see his eyes. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly unsure where to put his hands, unsure how to stand, unsure how to breathe. Thank you, he said quietly. For inviting me today. I really needed it. His voice wasn't light or playful like earlier. It was warm, sincere, almost vulnerable. Rumi felt something in her chest soften. I'm glad you came. He looked up at her then, and everything slowed. His gaze flicked just barely to her lips. A quick glance. So small she might have imagined it. Except she didn't. Her heart jumped, heat blooming under her skin. Oh no. She froze, realizing horribly, suddenly that she was hoping he would kiss her. What is wrong with me? He's a stranger. A demon. A danger. And yet her breath caught, waiting for something she knew shouldn't happen. Naruto noticed the change in her posture, how she tensed, how her eyes widened and snapped out of whatever pull had caught him. He blinked, stepping back just half a pace, clearing his throat. Sorry, he murmured, looking away quickly. I didn't mean to, stare. She shook her head too fast. No, it's fine, it's... But her voice cracked. Embarrassment flooded her cheeks, and she turned her face slightly so he wouldn't see the pink rising up her neck. Naruto swallowed, guilt and longing tangling inside him. I should get going, he said softly. Thank you again, Rumi. She nodded, still flustered. Yeah, good night. He gave her one last shy, almost apologetic smile, one that made her stomach twist, and then he stepped back, hands shoved into his pockets, walking off down the dimly lit street. Rumi stood there long after he disappeared around the corner, her pulse thundering, breath shaky. She touched her lips, hating herself for wishing, for even a second, that he hadn't walked away. The phone rang, sharp and hollow, echoing through the ruins. Menma lay sprawled on the floor, chest torn wide by a wound that had shredded a lung. Every breath rattled wet, blood spilling down his chin, seeping into the boards until the floor drank it in. His hand twitched weakly, fingers dragging through the dark pool, leaving trembling streaks like a man trying to write his last confession. The shop was ruined, her shop. Miss Huang's pride. The place she had poured her whole life into, and the place she had entrusted to him after hers ended. Now it was collapsing, breaking down beam by beam, like his body breaking down organ by organ. Pots and pans she had once polished until they gleamed like small suns sagged in warped heaps, their handles curling in on themselves. Jars of tea and spices that used to fill the air with warmth were shattered, their scents mixing with smoke and blood into something acrid and bitter. Her counter was cracked straight through, a beam pinning it down like a body under stone. Above, the rafters sagging lower with each creak. Dust sifted down in lazy streams, catching the faint glow of firelight. The roof was breathing its last, so was he. And through the haze, she came to him. Miss Huang, apron tied snug, eyes sharp, lips pressed in that half-smile she never admitted was for him. He could almost hear her voice, clipped and brisk but warm beneath it, scolding him for leaning on her counter, muttering that he'd never learned to balance the books. She had been gone for years, but here she was, real as the wreckage. His vision blurred, tears strkng through soot. His lips parted, words barely more than a rasp. "I'm so sorry, Miss Huang, I couldn't keep it safe. I failed you." A crack split the air overhead, one of the beams snapping under its own weight. At the same instant, the phone rang again, harsh and metallic, jolting him back into the present. With slick fingers, he dragged himself forward, inch by inch, leaving crimson handprints across the shattered floor. His arm shook, his strength bleeding out with every pull. The glow of the cracked screen burned faintly through the smoke. For a heartbeat, he thought it might be her name lighting the glass, her voice calling him home. But when his eyes cleared, just enough, the truth cut through. Rumi. Her name glowed, soft and steady, against the ruin. His lips curved into the faintest smile, trembling, fragile. He brushed his fingers across the glass, smearing her name with red. Then the shop groaned again. Another beam split, the sound deep and heavy, like a drumbeat. His chest answered with its own falter, heartbeat stuttering in time with the wood. Another crack. Another stutter. Slower. Weaker. Both body and building caving in together, breath and beam collapsing as one. The final creak of timber rose, his last heartbeat echoing with it. And then silence. The darkness claimed them both. 3 hours earlier. Menma woke up smiling for the first time in as long as he could remember. The smile came naturally, unforced. He didn't need a reason. For weeks, happiness had been a foreign language, something he had to justify or ration. But today, it simply existed. He felt good. It was the day. The 1-year anniversary of waking from the coma. He had planned to just check on the store, lock it up, and then visit the tree. Nothing fancy, nothing monumental, just a quiet acknowledgement of surviving, of being alive. As he walked up to the store, he saw Een and Tachi standing by the locked doors, looking lost. Menma chuckled, laughing softly without noticing the subtle unease in their expressions. "Hey, guys. I'm closed today, y'all know that," he said, letting the laughter spill out easily, like water over stone. Little Tachi smiled faintly. "I know," he said. But Yin's eyes were clouded, brows furrowed, lips moving as if searching for a memory just out of reach. "I had to grab something but now I can't remember what it was," he murmured. Menma's smile faltered. Een was never forgetful. Always drunk, loud, tired but never absent-minded. He used to call it training from the war. His mind was a steel trap, a library of survival memories. "Een, what did you forget?" Menma asked, placing a hand on his shoulder. The moment his fingers touched him, a pulse hit him one he hadn't felt in 4 years. Chakra. Impossible. No one had chakra in this world. Not even him. His own Karama chakra had long since twisted into demon energy, marking him as something else entirely. Instinctively, he pushed a spark of that corrupted energy into Een, sharp and hot, meant to shock him awake. "Een. What happened? Who did this to you? What are you talking about, Menma?" Yin's voice trembled. "A man, he told me you needed my help, so I came here. Last thing I remember, red eyes. A black star for a pupil." Menma's BLD went cold. "A Sharingan? How?" The moment of shock was cut short by a voice, cold and smooth, slicing through the air behind them. "Well, Ashura, this is where you've been hiding. Or is it Naruto?" Menma spun. Standing in the street was a man cloaked in black, his skin pale gray, long black hair tied in a loose ponytail. He walked with deliberate, almost ceremonial steps. His eyes glowed BLD red, black stars spinning at their centers. Menma's breath caught. The face, the body, it was impossible. Sasuke? The name slipped out, fragile as glass. The man looked exactly like Sasuke had the day he unleashed the full weight of his curse mark. Veins darkening his skin. The twisted, monstrous wings of hands sprouting grotesquely from his back. Menma remembered that form like a scar. He remembered watching Sasuke die impaled, body broken, his story ended by Kagaya's hand. This couldn't be real. Yet the sight in front of him left no room for denial. The man chuckled darkly. Ah, so you knew my last predecessor. I'm not surprised. Ashura always tried to save him. And now you, his successor, are still repeating the same mistake. Menma's body moved before thought. His stance dropped low, muscle memory dragging him back into patterns he hadn't practiced in years. His body was softer now, slower, but the instincts were carved deep, unshakable. The battlefield lived in his bones. Een. Take Tachi. Get out of here. Een didn't argue. His face went pale, but he grabbed the boy's hand and ran. The sound of their retreating footsteps pounded like a clock against Menma's ribs. He couldn't let this fight touch them. Menma's patterns flared to life, marks burning across his skin. His eyes shifted, red iris slitting like a beast awakening. His chest rose and fell, demon chakra prickling in the air like electricity. I don't know if Jiraiya sent you, Menma growled, but you made a mistake coming to my store. The man's smirk widened. Ashura Naruto Menma. So many names, none of them really yours. I didn't come to fight. Not yet. If you do as I say, no one gets hurt. What is it you want from me? Menma asked, not believing for a second this could end peacefully. He knew he was no match for the monster. Not without his chakra. He knew how to use his energy to a certain extent, but not enough to fight someone like this. I want your soul, the man said, smiling, sharp teeth glinting. Menma sighed. Of course you do. And with a flash, he charged. Indra waited. Until Menma was close, then shot out a leg, kicking him into the wall. Pain exploded through his side as the boards cracked. He gasped, instinct and adrenaline pushing him upright. Quick, think quick. It's useless, Naruto, the demon said, voice smooth, almost taunting. You're no match for me. But maybe you'd fight harder if you had the proper motivation. And with that he vanished. Menma picked himself up, wounds stinging but already feeling his body recover. Proper motivation? He thought, heart hammering. Then it hit him, Tachi, Een, and with a sickening pull in his chest, he realized what he had to do. The demon had teleported. Menma followed immediately. Menma teleported just in time to see Indra's hand clamped around Yin's throat, lifting him off the ground. Red. Pure, burning red filled Menma's vision. Get away from him. His voice thundered, several octaves deeper than normal as he channeled his demonic energy. His whisker marks darkened to sharp streaks, pupils slit and vertical like a dragon's. His nails elongated into razor claws, his entire aura crackling with raw, violent power. Indra chuckled, cold and amused. Oh, so now you're taking it seriously, huh? And with a flick of his arm, he tossed Een aside like a ragdoll, body flying across the ground, skidding to a halt against broken concrete. Menma saw red. Saw red and nothing else. He lunged forward, claws slashing, red energy flaring with each strike. The air screamed as claw-shaped marks tore through concrete, chasing Indra with the force of a storm. Indra twisted gracefully out of the path, evading the barrage. Menma whispered through gritted teeth, voice low and resonant, demon art chains from eternal damnation. From his hand, a black chain sprang to life, floating in the air, thrumming with malicious energy. It hissed as if alive, eager to bite, coil, and crush. He swung it with a violent arc, forcing Indra to step back, but the chain missed, embedding itself in a nearby wall with a deafening crash. For a heartbeat, Menma thought he had the advantage, but then the chain snapped back, whipping through the air like a living thing. It caught him across the arm, tearing through skin, muscle, and sinew in a single vicious strike. Pain seared through him, and he stumbled, teeth gritting as he forced himself upright. The air between them thrummed with energy, charged with the heat of Menma's rage and Indra's cruel amusement. Every muscle in Menma's body screamed to lash out again, claws ready, chains coiling, the world narrowing down to the single thought: protect Een, destroy Indra. Indra smiled, shadows curling around him like living smoke. It's only fair if I use these abilities too, he said. In an instant, his body darkened completely, swallowed by shadows that writhed and shifted like a storm. From the blackness, he produced a massive claymore, its surface thrumming with raw, crackling energy. He charged. Menma barely dodged the swing, the air screaming past his face. He lashed out with his chain, trying to wrap and immobilize the blade, but the claymore collided with the black chain, blasting it apart in an explosion of energy that sent shards of stone and metal flying. The blade continued its arc, cleaving deep into Menma's side. Pain flared like fire, stealing his breath. He gasped, blood searing his lungs, but he refused to fall. One hand seized the sword's handle, clawing at Indra's face with the other, digging deep into his skin. Indra's scowl cut through the dark as he forced Menma to release the blade, sending him sprawling forward. Before Menma could recover, Indra's hand was around his throat, squeezing with crushing force. I'm done playing with you, Amaterasu, he hissed. Black flames erupted across Menma's body, heat so intense it charred the air, sizzling flesh and armor alike. Menma screamed, rolling and thrashing as skin blistered and burned. Pain tore through him, screaming from every nerve, but he dug deep into his demonic energy, channeling it into red-hot power. The black flames were dispersed in a violent burst, leaving him scorched, his skin seared and hanging in tatters. Blood ran down his body, steaming where it met the heat, and his muscles trembled under the strain. Yet beneath it all, the red energy of his rage pulsed, burning hotter than the black flames ever could. Indra's eyes widened slightly, surprise, fleeting, in the midst of his own fury. Before Menma could react, a flash of gold appeared in the chaos. A blade, gleaming like sunlight against the shadow, sliced through the air toward Indra. It was Een, armed with a golden-coated nodachi, stepping into the battlefield with deadly precision. Yin's golden nodachi gleamed as he faced Indra, body taut and precise. Every movement was deliberate, measured, a deadly dance honed by years of training. Indra lunged first, the black claymore slicing through the air with terrifying speed. Een sidestepped, pivoting on his heels, the nodachi barely grazing the attack as sparks flew from the impact. The clash echoed through the ruined street, each strike sending tremors across cracked concrete. Yin's muscles burned with exertion, his arms trembling from the effort of holding his guard against a demon whose strength seemed limitless. Sweat stung his eyes, but his grip never wavered. Indra's shadowy form blurred as he advanced, swinging with ferocity. He attacked from angles Een hadn't anticipated, forcing the hunter to roll, leap, and dodge in a constant rhythm of defense. The golden nodachi flickered like lightning, parrying strikes that could have split a man in two. Menma, battered and scorched, watched from behind, claws twitching, eyes blazing red. He could see the strain in Yin's movements, the subtle hitch in his breathing, the widening of his eyes as the attacks pressed him to the edge. But Een refused to fall. Every strike from the claymore met the nodachi, sparks flying, each clash resonating with unspoken fury. Indra smirked, his black flames licking the air as he swung the claymore in a wide arc. Een ducked, rolled, and sprang back up, countering with a precise upward slash. The blade hummed as it met shadowed steel, sending a shockwave that knocked Indra off balance momentarily. "You're good," Indra hissed, recovering quickly. "But not good enough." He teleported in a blink, reappearing behind Een. The claymore came down with lethal intent. Een twisted midair, the nodachi catching the edge of the attack, sparks dancing like fireflies. His foot caught the cracked concrete, giving him leverage as he spun, swinging back at Indra's torso. The blade met resistance, the demon blocked it effortlessly, sending a wave of force that slammed Een backward into a broken wall. Dust and debris rained down, but Yin's resolve didn't falter. He shook off the impact, stance unbroken, eyes narrowed. "I don't care who you are," he shouted, voice ringing clear. I will not let you hurt him. Indra lunged again, faster this time, shadows stretching like tendrils to wrap around Yin's legs. Yin leaped, somersaulting over the grasping darkness, landing in a crouch. His movements were graceful but exhausting, every dodge, parry, and strike was costing him more than he had to give. Yet he held, refusing to yield an inch. Menma's claws glowed as he surged forward, a slash of red energy strkng toward Indra. The demon smirked, blocking with the claymore, but Menma's strike was enough to break his rhythm, giving Yin a split-second advantage. He lunged, spinning, nodachi flashing in a golden arc, slicing at Indra's shadowed shoulder. The blade cut through the dark energy, tearing at flesh beneath, and Indra hissed, retreating a step. But Indra recovered instantly, teleporting again to strike from above. Yin jumped, rolling forward, dodging barely, and countered with a spinning strike aimed at the demon's midsection. They clashed again, sparks flying, shadows and gold dancing in violent opposition. Minutes passed, the fight unrelenting. Yin's arms shook, sweat and strkng his face, every muscle screaming for respite. Yet he pressed on, every attack a testament to his willpower and skill. Menma stayed close, intercepting attacks that might have bypassed Yin, lending strength where the hunter faltered. Indra's amusement waned as he realized the hunter wasn't just surviving, he was holding his own. His attacks became more frenzied, less precise, as he tried to break Yin's guard with brute force. Yin danced around him, golden blade strkng through the chaos, blocking, striking, weaving through the shadowy assaults with a relentless rhythm born of desperation. Finally, Yin landed a heavy slash to Indra's arm, drawing first blood. Indra hissed, black flames licking his skin, shadows shivering like living things. He lunged again, faster than before, but Yin anticipated it, pivoting mid-strike, spinning the nodachi in a deflective arc that sent the demon skidding back a few steps. Both fighters paused for a heartbeat, breathing hard. Yin's golden blade glowed faintly from exertion, muscles trembling, but his eyes burned with unyielding focus. Menma's red energy flared, claws twitching, ready to strike again. The ruined street echoed with the energy of battle, concrete cracked, dust swirling, shadows and gold painting a chaotic tapestry of life, rage, and survival. The air was thick with dust and energy, the ruined street echoing with the clash of steel and shadow. Yin's golden nodachi quivered in his hands, muscles trembling, exhaustion pressing like a weight on his shoulders. Menma hovered nearby, claws flashing, red energy pulsing, ready to intercept, but Yin was still holding the fight. Indra circled him, eyes cold, voice a low hiss cutting through the chaos. "Who do you fight for, boy?" "Him? He's a demon, a coward. He abandoned his world, left it to die. Why would you risk your life for him?" Yin's chest heaved, sweat and blood strkng his face, yet his eyes were unflinching. He planted his feet firmly, raising the nodachi in defiance. "I fight for what's right. For those who can't protect themselves. For those who've been abandoned, yes, but also for those who deserve a second chance. Menma, he may be a demon, he may have made mistakes, but he saved me, he saved others, and he would do it again without hesitation. He's like a son." Indra's smirk twisted into something darker. "Sentiment, foolishness. That loyalty will be your undoing." With a sudden blur of shadows, Indra lunged. Yin swung his nodachi to block, muscles screaming with the effort, but the demon's speed was impossible. The golden blade collided with Indra's claymore, sparks exploding, but the force drove Yin back, his arms giving way under the pressure. Time slowed. Yin's mind raced. I can't fail." The next strike came faster than thought. Yin's block faltered, the claymore pierced his chest, driving through him with brutal precision. Pain like fire exploded through his body, breath tearing from his lungs. The world tilted, colors bright, fading, the golden sunlight of his nodachi reflecting off Indra's cruel eyes. His last thought, whispered through blood and agony, was soft, fragile, and human, "I'm sorry, Celine." Yin collapsed, the golden nodachi clattering to the cracked concrete. Red-streaked air swirled around Menma, claws flashing, but the hunter lay still, a finality hanging over the ruined street. Indra stepped back, shadows recoiling around him, a mixture of amusement and satisfaction in his cruel smile. Yin's body lay crumpled on the cracked concrete, golden nodachi sliding from trembling hands. Menma's chest tightened as his mind screamed with unbearable clarity, "You failed again. You left them. You couldn't protect anyone." The world around him dissolved into fragments of rage and grief. Miss Wang, gone long ago. Yin, taken in an instant. Every life lost, every failure he had carried for years, now converged into one impossible, molten weight. His veins burned with it. His chest ached as if the air itself had turned to iron. No, no, and no. Menma's scream ripped from his throat, guttural, primal, a sound that was not entirely human. Hatred flared first sharp, pure, blinding. Indra the demon before him, standing calmly, arrogantly was the focus of all of it. For taking Yin. For the chaos he wrought. For every innocent life crushed under his arrogance. Then guilt tore through the fury. You should have been stronger. You should have predicted this. You should have saved them. The voices of every fallen soul Miss Huang, Yin, Tachi echoed in his mind, accusing, unrelenting. Why couldn't you protect us? Grief followed like a tidal wave, suffocating and all-consuming, wrapping itself around every thought. Menma's mind teetered on the edge of breaking, every heartbeat a hammering drum of despair and fury. Yet amidst the chaos, a singular clarity emerged, Indra, you will pay. The vile red energy stitching the Han moon retracted violently, shattering into brilliant sparkles. All the stored hatred, grief, and rage funneled into Menma, reshaping him. He felt every failure, every loss, every shred of anger become weapon, become armor. The world around him answered. His claws extended, glowing red-hot. Whisker marks flared jagged and black, his pupils slit into vertical dragon-like shapes. Energy crackled and danced across his body, and the air itself seemed to recoil. Concrete cracked under his feet. Every window in the ruined street shattered simultaneously, raining glass like deadly rain. The sound was deafening, a scream of crystal and metal echoing across the city. The shockwave radiated outward, tossing rubble and debris, shaking the very earth. Every inhale, every heartbeat, every thought was raw, unrestrained energy. Menma's fury warped reality. Cars tumbled, street lamps bent, dust clouds swallowed the ruins. Birds fled screaming into the sky. He didn't move, yet the world itself seemed to quake around him, acknowledging his presence, recognizing him as something beyond human. His mind narrowed, razor-sharp and merciless, Indra. Clarity merged with wrath. There was no hesitation, no fear, no thought for survival. Every fiber of his being, every shred of identity, every ounce of grief and guilt had fused into a singular purpose: destroy. And then he saw Indra the demon who had killed Yin, who had taken everything he had left. Menma's eyes burned with the full weight of a soul scorched by loss and sharpened by fury. Indra's confident smirk faltered. For the first time, the demon recognized it, not a man, not a hunter, but a force of nature, a storm of wrath and grief made flesh. Menma roared again, claws extending fully, energy flaring outward. His scream wasn't just sound, it was a physical force, cracking the air, splintering glass, shattering concrete. The shockwave tore through the ruined street, throwing debris like confetti in the maelstrom of his rage. Time slowed. Menma didn't think. He felt. Every memory of loss, every ounce of hatred, every pang of guilt surged through him like molten fire, driving him forward. The world shrank to one target. Indra. And he was coming. The city trembled beneath the weight of a monster's wrath. The air warped. Glass and steel trembled. Red energy burned hotter than the sun around him, twisting shadows and light into violent, jagged arcs. Menma was no longer human. He was fury incarnate. He was the storm. And with a final, breathless scream of grief and rage, he lunged, claws extended, every movement infused with the raw, unstoppable energy of a man who had lost everything and would let nothing else be taken from him. The world held its breath. Menma lunged. The ground beneath him shattered, shards of concrete spraying outward as his claws cut through the air. Red energy flared in jagged arcs around him, a storm of pure wrath, and the very wind screamed in response. Every heartbeat, every shred of grief and rage, drove him forward like a living tidal wave. Indra barely had time to react. Shadows twisted around him, black flames licking at his skin, but they recoiled instinctively from Menma's surge. Menma's claws struck first a slash not aimed at a limb or torso, but at the space around Indra, the red energy slicing through reality itself. Glass shattered in nearby buildings, windows exploding outward in a violent symphony. The concussive force tore at the streets, sending chunks of asphalt flying like missiles. A shockwave rippled through the air, bending street lamps, sending debris spinning into the sky. Dust and sparks swirled in the vortex of energy, a tornado of destruction born entirely of his fury. Menma didn't hesitate. Each motion was amplified, a blur of claws, red energy, and lethal intent. Indra slashed with his black claymore, the steel singing through the air, but Menma's rage-fed reflexes matched him perfectly. Every block, every dodge, every strike carried the weight of every life he had lost, every failure, every promise broken. And then Menma struck full force. His claws met Indra's torso, red energy exploding outward like wildfire. The impact sent the demon skidding backward, a ripple of destruction tearing through the street. Pavement cracked, glass shattered, and a nearby building groaned under the psychic weight of Menma's fury. Menma's vision narrowed, every thought consumed by a single truth: he would not lose anyone else. Not now. Not ever. The world shook, the air burned, and every breath he drew was an oath of vengeance. Indra staggered, momentarily caught off guard by the raw, unrestrained power. For the first time, fear crept into the demon's eyes, not of Menma's skill, but of the force of nature he had unleashed. Menma was no longer human. He was grief and rage made flesh, unstoppable and terrifying in his singular purpose. Menma's claws flashed again, energy slashing through the air, a symphony of red fire and destruction. Sparks erupted where they met the remnants of Indra's shadow, the shockwave tearing through the crumbling city like a predator claiming its prey. And in that instant, Menma felt it, every failure, every loss, every ghost that had haunted him for years feeding into his power. He was not just fighting. He was rewriting the rules of the world around him. The monster had awoken. Menma surged like a storm, claws tearing through the air with feral precision. Red energy screamed from his body, bending the light and cracking the pavement beneath him. Glass exploded from nearby buildings, shards slicing the air, debris spiraling like deadly confetti. Indra stumbled backward, black flames and shadow writhing across him, striking with the claymore but faltering under the sheer force of Menma's attack. Menma fought like a wild animal, every motion a lethal dance. He slashed through walls, ripped up concrete, and struck with unrelenting fury. Indra ducked, teleported, clawed at Menma with desperation, trying to find a way to stop him, but the monster before him wasn't thinking. Menma wasn't thinking. He was pure, unbridled rage. Then Indra's eyes found Itachi, crouched behind a pile of shattered boxes. A cruel grin twisted his face. He snatched the boy up. "Drop your demon form," Indra hissed. Menma's claws retracted, energy simmering down, whisker marks fading slightly, but his eyes never left the demon. Every muscle tensed, burning with fury. Indra slashed at Itachi anyway, lightning crackling along his hand. Menma shoved the boy out of harm's way. Itachi tumbled free, eyes wide, fleeing into the ruins. Indra's hand sparked, cloaked in electricity. Menma froze, whispering through gritted teeth, "Sasuke." Before he could react, Indra shoved the lightning-charged fist through Menma's chest. Pain erupted like fire, ribs screaming, every breath tearing through him. He held the fist there, teeth clenched, body straining, chest burning, ensuring Itachi could escape. When the boy was gone, Menma sagged, energy spent, claws retracting fully. Red aura collapsed inward. He coughed violently, blood spilling from his mouth, strkng the cracked ground. Indra stepped forward, black flames dancing, voice laced with mockery. "I see your spirit is like Ashura's. always protecting the innocent, even when it costs you everything. With a shove, Indra sent Menma crashing into the ruined ramen shop. Wood splintered, beams cracked, tiles shattered, dust filling every corner. The roof groaned under the impact. Menma lay among the wreckage, battered, coughing, trembling but alive. Rage still simmered, lurking just beneath the surface. Then the phone rang. Sharp. Hollow. Echoing through the ruin. Menma's head lifted, vision blurred, chest heaving. BLD soaked his clothes, streaked his hands. The shop, her shop. Miss Wang's pride collapsed around him, beam by beam, jar by jar. Pots sagged in warped heaps, counters cracked under debris, scents of spilled tea and spices mixing with smoke and BLD. Above, the rafters sagging lower, dust drifting in lazy streams, catching what little firelight remained. And through the haze, she appeared. Miss Wang. Apron tied, eyes sharp, lips pressed in that half-smile he could never forget. Though years had passed, here she was, a ghost in the ruins, scolding him softly, warm beneath the brisk words. His lips trembled, rasping words. I'm so sorry, Miss Wang, I couldn't keep it safe. I failed you. A beam above snapped. At the same time, the phone rang again, shrill, metallic. Menma dragged himself forward, fingers leaving trembling streaks of red on the shattered floor. Strength bleeding out with every inch. The cracked screen glowed faintly. For a heartbeat, he thought it might be her voice calling him home. But the name burned through the glass, Rumi. A faint, fragile smile curved his lips. He brushed his fingers across the screen, smearing it with BLD. Another beam groaned, another crack split the air. His chest faltered with each creak. Heartbeat stuttering in time with the wood. Both building and body collapsing together, breath and timber merging in their death throes. The final timber his last heartbeat echoing with it, and then silence. Darkness claimed them both. Indra stepped forward, each movement deliberate, shadows clinging to him like smoke. His eyes, red and predatory, locked on the boy. Leave the boy alone. The voice cut through the ruined street, calm but razor-sharp. Indra froze mid-step. The words weren't just a warning, they were a challenge. Slowly, he turned, a smirk tugging at his lips. Whoever dared stand in his way would die. He had no patience left, no mercy. Then he saw her. Celine. Armor glinting in the firelight, katana drawn. The blade didn't just shine, it glowed blue, humming with a low, lethal energy that bent the air around it. Another hunter? Indra's voice was low, dangerous, though weariness bled through the bravado. His body ached from endless clashes, his lungs burned, his mind sharp but fraying. I just killed one. What makes you think you can stop me? Celine didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her katana tracing a slow arc that fractured the shadows, scattering them into shards of light. You're tired, she said, each word precise, unshakable. You won't last much longer. And if you kill me, she let the pause linger, heavy, the Hunters Association will descend on you. Not even you survive that. Indra's smirk faltered. Hesitation was foreign to him, but fatigue weighed heavier than his blade. For the first time, a sliver of doubt broke through the predator's certainty. Celine's eyes never wavered. The blue glow of her katana pulsed like a heartbeat. I won't fight to die, she said evenly. But I will fight to protect. If you want to survive, leave now. The wind carried ash, smoke, and BLD. Indra's claymore, black and crackling with energy, dragged at his arms. His steps grew heavier, vision blurred at the edges. He lunged more test than strike, and Celine slid aside, her blade carving sparks where light clashed with shadow. He staggered back, claws scraping pavement. For a moment, the battlefield stilled. The monster faltered. Celine advanced, every step deliberate. The message was unspoken but clear, the hunter was not alone. The association was watching. Indra's lips twitched, frustration warping his face. You're only delaying the inevitable. Maybe, Celine answered, her voice soft but cutting, but even storms can be weathered. Even monsters can be stopped. For the first time in years, Indra's confidence didn't return. Exhaustion, the looming wrath of the hunters, and the unshakable presence of her blade pressed against him. And Menma still alive, still beyond his grasp haunted the edges of his mind. The street fell silent but for the hum of her katana. Indra's breath came ragged, his predator's rhythm broken. And in that hesitation, Celine's shadow closed in. His snarl was a whisper of thunder. I'll be back for him. And when I am, I'll take his soul. With a crack of lightning, he vanished. Celine exhaled, surveying the wreckage. What a mess. She wanted to blame the boy, the demon child, but she had seen it herself, the red energy shielding humans in the battle. Her gaze fell to a body. Een. Her chest tightened. Ubstrd, she whispered, kneeling beside him. Her husband. Her lover. Dead. Memories surged how they'd split after Rumi's mother died. He had begged her to stay, but she walked away. Now, seeing him still and broken, regret bit deep. Tears blurred her vision. She bent down, pressed her lips to his cheek, and closed his eyes. Rest, my love. You deserve it. The softness bled away, replaced with steel. She turned toward the blonde demon. Menma lay among the ruins, eyes closed, a faint smile frozen on his face. Her heart clenched. He reminded her of Rumi, another child cursed with a terrible fate. But unlike Rumi, this boy was no innocent. She had seen the energy burst from him, destroying the Han moon completely. It was his power. She crept closer, crouching low. 2 fingers pressed against his neck, light pulse, barely there. He would die without treatment. In his limp hand, she noticed a phone. She pried it free and glanced at the screen. A missed call. One name. Rumi. Her breath caught. That meant the boy was the other half of the prophecy, the demon half. She should kill him now. There was no way she could allow such a vile demon to live. And yet in her heart, she knew that wasn't true. She had seen him take the blow for the human boy. She had seen him defend Een. He was a paradox, a demon who cared, who protected humans. As she wrestled with it, the boy murmured, barely audible, must protect Tachi, then he collapsed, fully unconscious. That sealed it. She bound his wounds and lifted him with grim resolve. To the tree, she whispered, voice low. Where the cursed prophecy began. She walked out into the light of day, footsteps echoing against the broken street. Menma opened his eyes. Bright, too bright. White stretching endlessly, blinding, suffocating. He blinked and squinted, but there was nothing. No ground, no shadows, no horizon, just light pressing against his eyelids. Am I dead? His voice cracked. Half a joke. Half a plea. No, Naruto, came a familiar groan. I swear, you're always so dramatic. He spun around. And froze. Team 7 was there. All of them. Sakura, smiling softly, her eyes wet with unshed tears. Sasuke, arms crossed, a reluctant smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. Kakashi, calm but somehow present. His chest collapsed, all the tension of months, years, grief, loneliness, fear, every ounce of it bursting at once. He lunged, threw himself onto them, clutching them like if he let go, he would shatter. Tears streamed down his face, burning, hot, unstoppable. G's dead last. Let go, Sasuke muttered, voice gruff but softening. Ma, Sasuke, Kakashi said, eye crinkling behind his mask. It's been a while. Let him have this. Menma laughed shakily through his sobs. Is it my time? Can I join you? Sakura's smile faltered. Sadness and love woven together. I'm sorry, Naruto. Not yet. It's not your time. And it won't be for a while. The words hit him like a tidal wave. His knees buckled. He collapsed into their embrace, sobbing so hard it shook his whole body. "But I'm so tired," he gasped. "I can't do this, I can't live without you. I failed. I ran. I abandoned the prophecy. I don't deserve, I can't." Sakura lifted his face with trembling hands, brushing the tears from his cheeks. "You didn't fail anyone," she said firmly. "No one wanted you to die. You're not a coward. But you have to let go of us, and of that shame that's crushing you." Sasuke's voice cut through, gruff, undeniable. "You abandoned your name. That's not okay. But we were proud to fight alongside Naruto, not Menma, lost and broken like this." Kakashi nodded, quietly, weight behind each word. "We can't rest knowing you're suffering. Knowing you've given up on yourself." Menma's chest heaved, his fingers clutching at the light that surrounded them, as if he could hold them there forever. He wanted to scream, beg, demand they stay. But their figures shimmered, fracturing into motes of white light, dissolving with impossible softness. Sakura lifted his chin, smiled through the ache, her hand warm, firm. "Hold your head high. Remember who you are. You are Naruto Uzumaki, a shinobi of the leaf. Our teammate. Make us proud." And then they were gone. He collapsed, sobs racking his chest, stomach hollow, the emptiness. Roaring. "No, don't leave me again." But buried deep under the grief, their words lingered, faint but steady. A fragile thread of warmth, stubbornly refusing to die. He gasped, eyes snapping open. Sweat, tears, and trembling hands. He was back. Alive. Pain still slicing through him, raw, unrelenting, but there was a spark. He could still fight. He had to. For them. For the leaf. For himself. Naruto sat up, chest shaking, tears still streaming, but the fire of hope was there now. Fragile. Fragile, yes, but unbroken. He was back. Alive. Pain still slicing through him, raw, unrelenting, but he could still fight. He had to. Rumi, Mira, and Zoey were getting ready for practice in the small studio, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. Rumi had pulled a dark gray oversized sweater over her tank top, sleeves long over her hands, hiding the faint swirling patterns on her arms. Mira wore a loose gray sweatshirt tied at the waist, and Zoey wore a bright red CRP top and joggers. The faint smell of sweat lingered from earlier practice, mingling with cleaning spray on the polished wooden floor. Bobby burst in, phone clutched in both hands, eyes wide. "Girls. The Idol Awards postponed. 2 more weeks," he said, voice tight. "Why?" Mira asked immediately. "Freak accident. Minor earthquake. Some buildings shook," Bobby said, scrolling frantically. "Anyone killed?" Zoey asked. "One casualty, about 200 injured, mostly minor," he said, swallowing hard. Rumi's chest dropped. 10th Street Menma works there. Her fingers tightened on her sweater sleeves. The TV in the corner flickered to a news report, shaky footage of the street and collapsed buildings. Emergency crews responding to the minor earthquake found one casualty inside a small ramen shop in Tokamiya. The shop was completely destroyed. The victim could not be saved. Rumi's hands flew to her mouth. "The ramen shop, that's where he works." Bobby's face went pale. "Wait, you've eaten there, right?" "Yes," Rumi whispered, swallowing hard, sweater tight over her arms. Her mind raced. No, he has to be okay, he has to." Bobby's voice cracked. "And that blonde guy, is he your boyfriend?" "He's not my boyfriend." Rumi snapped, backing away from the TV. Her chest felt tight, every breath shallow. "He's just a friend." Bobby went silent for a moment, staring at the screen, voice barely audible. "Just a friend in a destroyed shop, I can't." Rumi's fingers trembled beneath her sweater sleeves. She pulled the phone closer. "I have to call him." I need to hear his voice, I need to know. The voicemail picked up. Hello? You've reached. Rumi's heart sank. Of course. Her hands shook, sweater hiding the faint patterns beneath. He has to be okay. He has to be. Sirens wailed outside. Dust drifted lazily through the cracked window. The fluorescent lights above hummed sharply in the tense silence of the studio. Mira and Zoey exchanged worried glances, but Rumi barely noticed them. She was trapped in a whirl of fear, imagining every possible scenario: injury, being trapped, bleeding, smoke, and it all pressed down on her chest. Bobby muttered from his chair, voice shaky. You should know you could go, maybe? Rumi shook her head quickly, but the thought clawed at her. I should go. I need to see him. I can't just wait here. Zoe's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. It's dangerous out there. We don't even know the state of the street. Could be aftershocks, falling debris. Rumi swallowed hard, sweater tugged tight over her arms. I can't just do nothing. Her heart hammered, each beat a drum of panic. He could be hurt, trapped, bleeding. Myra's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. If you go, we should go together. We'll make sure it's safe, or at least as safe as we can manage. Rumi shook her head again. No, I need to go now. I can't wait. I need to see him. Just make sure he's okay. Zoey squeezed her shoulder gently. Then we'll go with you. Just don't go alone. Please. Rumi's chest ached, tightness cutting her breath short. She nodded slowly, unable to speak. The fear clawed at her, the helplessness pressing in like a weight she could barely bear. She picked up her bag, sweater pulled even tighter around her trembling arms, and stepped toward the door. Every step felt heavy, weighted by panic and uncertainty. Dust drifted in from outside, sirens wailing closer, faint crashes echoing from distant debris. He has to be okay, he just has to be. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 3. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.